Welcome to FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast series. Here we talk about all things franchising. What is it all about? Is it for you? How do you find the best one to own? And so much more. Now your host, Tim Parmeter.
Hello, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to the latest edition of FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of FranCoach and your Franchising 101 host. Today, we have one of our franchise partners joining us, the first one of the year. And this is, sometimes we use the term emerging in franchising. These guys are brand spanking new with an amazing concept and just tons of opportunity within the always booming home service industry. So we're going to talk to them here in a moment. First up, always, who are we? And FranCoach is a national search firm dedicated to working with individuals like yourself interested in owning a franchise. We're partnered with well over 600 of the top franchisors in the country, and that spans nearly 70 different industries. Our goal is to help clients find the absolute best franchise for them to own. And the goal of the Franchising 101 podcast is to help educate people on all aspects of franchise ownership. Okay, that's the good stuff. That's the bad stuff. Now let's get to the good stuff. So joining us today, we got two people. So we've got the president, founder, he's all things for this group, Mr. Scott Marr of our featured franchise, which is Wallaby Windows. And we also have their vice president of basically everything because he is a self-admitted stud. And that is Mr. Caleb Kenner. Guys, thanks for joining us today.
Awesome. Appreciate you having us, Tim. It's always good and fun to be first.
And then there's Caleb. So right. He's it's like on Saturday Night Live, like the more times you come on and then you get after 5 you get the jacket. So Caleb, I think this is what 2 or 3 for you. So yeah. We got a couple more before we get the velvet jacket for you. So thanks for coming back. We got some new FranCoach and Franchising 101 merch, which is the word the cool kids use. So I'll have to hook you up with that. So Scott, you got to come back at least one more time before you're on the merch list. So, but thanks for coming, man. Wallaby Windows, we want to talk about that. But first, Scott, like, who the heck are you, man? How did you talk us a little bit about you and kind of that journey into franchising? Because this is not your first go around with this. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to, Tim. So it's interesting, everybody's journey into franchising is just a little bit different. And so happy to tell you about mine. So when I was a really young fella, I had a mobile truck washing business, and it was an all corporate company that we started. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, so started the business there. And like I mentioned, it was all corporate. So we had company owned locations and employees and trucks and so on and so forth. And we built a great name over the course of a couple of years. I originally started that business when I was really young and then decided to pursue scaling it nationally, right out of high school. And 2-3 years into the business, formally into the business, we were growing so fast. We built a great name. We were in 5 states. We had over 100 employees, and we just hit a point to where we were being approached by customers in all types of states, and we had national contracts, and so rather not national contracts, we had national customers that were contacting us saying, "Hey, can you provide service to us in Texas? Can you provide service in Arkansas?" And so on and so forth. And so for the first several times that happened, we would just say, "Sure, no problem," and then we'd go open a new greenfield, stand up a new location, and that was great. That was fun when things were going well. And then we just hit a point to where it was happening more and more frequently. And so we ultimately, that's kind of our transition into franchising, so to speak. A good friend of ours said, "Scott, why don't you look into franchising?" And at the time, I kind of had franchising to me had a negative connotation for whatever reason. It was just me being green to franchising. I said, "No, I don't want to lose control. I think that we as a company operation probably do a better job because we can control it and so on and so forth." And started thinking more about that, and a month went by, 6 months went by, and finally said, I think that's a really great idea, actually, because we kept getting contacted by our national customers. And so we learned about franchising, learned what a franchise disclosure document was, learned what a franchise agreement was, and we went to work and started to convert from an all corporate company to a franchise system. And that was in late 2013. It took the better part of 2013 to prepare for that. And like most new franchisors, they make some mistakes along the way, and some that are good for franchisees, some that are not so good for franchisees. And we certainly made our fair share of mistakes, but we figured it out over the next couple of years, and then we really hit the accelerator and grew that business. And franchising for me was something that when I figured it out, and when the magic happened between the franchisor and the franchisee, it was just something like nothing else that I had really ever experienced. And it was something really freaking cool. And so I realized at that point, that was like a really big inflection point in my career, where I said, this is something I want to be involved in for the duration of my career. And so here we are.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And so how long, and again, I just want to go back for a second. Like the one thing that really stuck in my mind is you were still in high school and you already had this going on?
Yeah, so I started my first business. The name of that company is called Fleet Clean USA. Still around and growing today, and that's something that I'm super proud of. Started that business, or at least the idea of that business, when I was 15 years old. Had a friend that had a driver's license, and so we it started as a really a B2C business. At the time, I was just anything I could do to earn a buck, and started out by washing, personally owned vehicles and RVs and motorcycles. And that turned into pressure washing of driveways and houses. And then learned of the niche, which is mobile fleet washing. So we would go out to companies like Cisco Food Service and Waste Management, Coca-Cola. We worked with a lot of Fortune, 100 and 500 companies. And we would basically go out. They used an outsourced service a lot of the times to come out and basically wash their fleets on a routine, recurring basis. So yeah.
I'm congratulations on that, and I'm selfishly blown away because I know what the hell I was doing when I was 15, 16 years old, and it wasn't that. It was probably the same thing as Caleb. Because at that point, I was pretty sure I was going to be a basketball star for Indiana University, and then, I don't know, play in the NBA for 15 years or so. So that was pretty much my focus at that time. Fell just a tiny bit short of that. So, geez, way to make me feel like an underachiever, Scott. Thank you. So, tell us about Wallaby Windows. Start off like what the heck do you guys do? Kind of product, services, customers. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So Wallaby Windows is a window and door replacement company. It's obviously a franchise opportunity. So we're a window and door replacement franchise system. Basically, what we do is we go into homes where the homeowner has a desire to have a more energy efficient window, or maybe they're looking to increase the style and energy efficiency. Maybe they want to change the look of the home, or maybe they're doing a multi-point renovation. Or in markets like Florida or any sort of coastal environments where they're looking for impact rated, materials, we can go in and do full, exterior window and door replacement. So it's a really it's a vanilla concept. It's what we do is relatively simple and straightforward. So that's really what this concept is about.
Gotcha. Okay. And so only residential? Do you get into commercial as well?
Yeah, good question. So we do residential and commercial. So we have the ability to do really any type of window and door replacement. It's not just limited to B2C. And the opportunities, if you just look around whenever you're going down the road, whether it be a strip center or it's a pharmacy or a home or whatnot. I mean, all of those windows and doors, Wallaby franchisees have the capabilities to remove and replace, or if it's a new construction, have the ability to do new construction as well.
Gotcha. Which is my next question right there. So you've got that. So, okay. And here's the good thing is I'm pretty sure windows and doors are never going to go out of style, right? So we're going to kind of need them. You mentioned the energy efficient part of it, which is, and rightfully so, becoming more and more, I think we're all becoming more and more aware of that, even if it's just from a standpoint of I pay less for my electric bill in the summer in Arizona based on having these things, right? So that's all cool. Let's talk a little bit about the business model, and kind of in particular the owner. So like the owner out there repairing and replacing windows and doors all day long. What does that kind of overall kind of high level business model look like?
Caleb, you want to take that one?
You bet. Yep. So when Scott was designing this concept, he really, and I guess I'm going to answer two questions here. The type of really owner that we're looking for, Tim, is your sales and marketing. That's the type of person that we're looking for. Someone that's managed a team, someone that's looking to kind of build an empire. But Scott knew that there could be potentially some things from an operational standpoint that Wallaby could really provide. So we have dedicated W2, I will say W2 specialists, a contact center that will actually take all the leads and get them on the schedule for those franchise partners in those areas, which I think is really, really crucial. The other thing is we have in-house specialists that will work with the subcontractors in this area. So this is a subcontractor model for windows and doors. And so the nice thing about that is it allows the franchise partner, that's what we call our franchisees, to really focus on hiring a sales manager, ops manager to kind of, maintain that relationship with the subcontractor, really be there for that homeowner. And then that operations manager will be there on the day of the installation when the subcontractors come to the home to answer any questions and really be that support. Because we've all been there. I've been there. I had a shed put in and it was subcontracted out and the guys were jerks. They ran over my landscaping. Nobody there was to answer questions. They didn't know what to say. And so Scott has really taken Wallaby and designed an operational foundation at his headquarters that will really help any franchise partner succeed.
Awesome. Well, and I think the bar is so low in anything home service, right? That if you just don't suck, you're actually above average, let alone if you actually try to be good. And, or, how many times the experience that you just talked about, Caleb, or you try to call somebody and nobody answers the phone, nobody calls you back, can't book anything online, like in any of those things. So having that kind of that contact center, building an infrastructure, and I want to come back to franchise infrastructure down. I want to make sure we don't miss that, because there's a key thing with Wallaby for being new that I think is really key. But even in that franchise partner model, this isn't just like, you're not trying to just like a one person show. You're making sure somebody's really on the sales side. Somebody's really making sure that's a happy customer, because that's going to lead to the referral side of things, right? So one thing you talked about, the subcontractor model for the labor. And I think anytime there is a subcontractor model in home service, if not the first thing, one of the first things people are going to go is like, I've never had to find and manage subcontractors before. How could I possibly do that? That's where you guys come in. So talk a little bit about some of the support mechanisms you guys have in place. I mean, I know they're all over the place, but for that subcontractor piece.
Hey everyone, I wanted to take a quick break from our podcast to tell you about our amazing friends at Entrepreneur. If you're looking to become a franchisee or simply learn more about business ownership, and Guys, let's be honest. You're listening to the Franchising 101 podcast, so we know you have some interest in this. And I really encourage you to go to entrepreneur.com to check out all of their great content and resources. Seriously, Entrepreneur has everything, all the way from a bookstore to the best podcasts, webinars, and videos, plus information on upcoming events and the latest articles that seriously, they cover all aspects of franchising and business ownership. If you're having trouble deciding which franchise is right for you, start with Entrepreneur's renowned Franchise 500 ranking, which highlights the best franchises of 2022. For 45 years and counting now, Entrepreneur has been and continues to be the most widely recognized and respected authority in the franchise market. Digital and print subscriptions are available, so you never miss out on anything. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Go to entrepreneur.com right now and learn more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we've established really wonderful vendor relationships and partnerships with some of the biggest brands in the window and door industry, and so we've really gone to great lengths to be prepared for our franchise partners. And so with that, one of the people on our team that is obviously sharing that knowledge with others comes from a role of recruiting subcontractors for over 10 years, and for another much larger organization than ours. And so we have a full standard operating procedure for how we find window and door installers in a given marketplace. And we have a full vetting process and application checklist and so on and so forth. So it's a full, fully completed, fully done process that we've already vetted out in our own location of Wallaby Windows. So we know it works. We know that we can, get good quality, subcontractors that are going to show up, get the jobs done, make our customers happy, and just make that a really smooth process for our franchise partners. So, and we've really been able to do this because, to a large part, our sister brand Koala, we've built a lot of clout in the industry. Koala was no one, 2.5, 3 years ago, to all of a sudden becoming a behemoth, the most recognizable installation franchise brand that exists. And so with that, we were able to really tap into the knowledge base that we had from there, and then tap into the vendor network that we've created and bring a lot of that stuff over to Wallaby from day one. So it really fast tracked our ability to be able to offer franchises with the Wallaby Windows concept.
Awesome. No, I love it. And I think it's just something people like, if it was employees, even if it's in a different industry, right? I'm going to own McDonald's. I've never managed a burger flipper before, but I've managed people before, right? The subcontractor thing throws those people off because it's not something they have a ton of experience with in most cases. But and I know you guys experience this, but there's a real benefit in that, because if they're not any good, it's so much easier to just not work with them anymore than an employee, number one. And number two, when you find good subcontractors, they're going to be smart enough to realize you're their meal ticket, because they just want to do the work, and the better job that they do, the more you're going to keep pumping them business over and over and over. So there's some huge advantages to it. It's just like, it's like a whole different language. So that, like, all of the different support mechanisms you guys have, that's one I wanted to make sure we really discussed a lot about.
And Tim, exactly what you just said there is exactly what we've experienced in our flagship location and throughout our piloting of Wallaby. Is you find a good subcontractor. Now you might have to go through one or two to find a good one that's going to be responsive, that's going to take you seriously. And part of that was us, figuring things out for ourselves as well early on. But once you find that subcontractor and you're giving them, work consistently week in and week out, they take you seriously. They answer your phone call, and they're quick to make things right if something did go wrong on a job site or whatever the case may be. So So that's something that I found really interesting. I had a certain level of skepticism early on about working with subcontractors, and that fear dissipated pretty darn quickly in the process.
Yeah. Caleb, you were about to say something a minute ago.
Yeah. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but that's, Tim, when I was talking to you, a few weeks ago about this concept, I think, the infrastructure right now, and Scott can tell me if I'm close with numbers, but, we have close to 40 employees currently. Scott's not done yet. We're adding as we speak. And we just have one flagship location. So Scott is building this thing for growth. It's got tremendous potential. And so it's one of the reasons, why I wanted to be a part of this thing, because the infrastructure was there. And franchising, for a new candidate, it can be nerve-wracking, right? Like, okay, do I trust this brand? Here are some of my concerns. Scott and his team have done a fantastic job of, getting over that and really helping franchise partners understand what we're building, and they'll feel much more comfortable about this type of investment, when they decide to move forward.
Yeah, and let's go back to just kind of educating people on franchising for a second. I mean, this is the Franchising 101 podcast after all. So you'll have and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but usually when you think about having 100 units in franchising, it's like, oh, you're a grown up now, right? You're the real deal. And then under there, you'll get emerging, you hear the terms micro emerging. Wallaby's brand spanking new. There's you have 0 owners open yet, right? And so for some people that may be like, yikes, that's a little scary. The next person's going to go, sweet, I'm on the front end of something, right? But behind the scenes in franchising, the newer brands are sometimes shoestringing it, right? Like the entire team might be on the podcast with us right now, right? And maybe not even it's really just Scott, but his buddy Caleb, he brought him in and gave him a polo to pretend like it's more people, right? We're talking like 30, 40 employees, right, within the system. You've got, and Koala, I think, is probably Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, is the true kind of sister to this, that's been around for a handful of years. I'm pretty sure you guys are over that 100 mark with that. So, kind of been there, done that. Existing franchisees, is insulation the same as windows? No, but right, there's a lot of similarities, but between there, to be able to have all of those resources, that experience, to now be able to launch. And Scott, you said something, I actually wrote it down early on, talking about your fleet business, which the name of it I probably should have wrote down, but. And you kind of did it in that humble, unassuming way. Yeah, hey, we've made some mistakes. Well, we all know people that have never made a mistake in their entire life. I mean, they have, but they haven't realized that they've made a mistake. So to have the awareness, yeah, hey, we messed some things up. How do we fix that for that brand? How do we definitely make sure it doesn't happen in Koala? And then now you've got all of that experience come into something that is brand new. So this is, when you think of something that is a humongous opportunity as a franchise, with openings basically everywhere, I'm guessing, other than Melbourne, Florida, right? Everywhere else in the United States, that fantastic opportunity is not coming with the normal risk of a new franchise. It's coming with proven systems, people, infrastructure, all of that. So kudos to you for already probably building a team much bigger than you need at the moment, but poised to make sure that you have everything in place for all of the franchisees that come on board. So it's super, super cool for that.
Yep.
What do we need as far as, do we need an office? We talked a little bit about the staff, equipment, stuff. What does that look like?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Scott. So really, there's no office required. This is home based, so the franchise partner can be from home. Now, as the business scales, if they have multiple trucks, they can certainly look at a lease space for that, but definitely not right away. They need 2 Ford Maverick pickups. That's part of our initial investment. and then hiring a sales manager and an ops manager. Now, that candidate, if, the first year, if they're like, hey, I really want to get my feet settled in, I want to kind of really understand this, I'm a sales guy by trade, and they want to take over that sales manager position and then just hire an ops manager, certainly, we'll look at that as an option, and then helping that franchise partner expand to then hire a sales manager, ops manager, that kind of stuff. So that's really what you need there. And then, like I mentioned, 2 trucks and a tape measure, in simple terms. But there's no rigs, there's no equipment. There's not any inventory. All the product is ordered through our software that we use. That's connected so that it'll ship all the stuff, to the locations and get those things installed, and then working with our internal team and subcontractors to coordinate the install date.
Awesome.
And if, once a franchise partner scales to a certain point and, they have 2-3 salespeople, and if they want a centralized location, a small, little place to be able to meet up and do things, they're certainly, welcome to have a small office or a sales office, or maybe like a flex warehouse space or something along those lines. But the big thing is that we don't require it. Gotcha. So if somebody wants to be more flexible and work from home or whatnot, like Caleb said, that's really within their discretion.
Awesome. Or if they're, they got 4 little kids or something, Caleb, we're probably going to want to get yes. an office somewhere 100%. Else, right? Yeah. So no, cool. And then I think, Caleb, your point about that, if that owner is coming in and they've got a great sales and marketing background, experience, number 1, but number 2, they want to do that, they can do that. If it's somebody that's maybe not their thing, you already have kind of the plan in place for maybe take that off of their plate. Maybe they stay a little higher level right off the bat. It's still possible.
Sure. Yep. And the nice thing is like I mentioned, we've talked about the infrastructure, at the headquarters, and if that franchise partner, wants to hire the sales manager, ops manager, which we highly suggest, there's still things for them to do, manage the back end finances, have team meetings, look at conversion percentage. There's other things that they will do and work with our home office team to ensure they're operating at the highest level. So just because they're not the sales manager, there are still things that we'll have them do.
Yeah. And I would guess owner is probably best when it's the owner, but that sales manager, if you hire somebody, getting out in the community, right? Connecting referral sources, right? Other home service brands. I was saying realtors are the best referral sources on the planet, right? All of those different things are going to come into play. Can we do semi-absentee owners?
Yes, but I want to talk about how we title that specifically. We want to say flexible ownership options, right? So whatever that means to a candidate, it will really just mean that they're going to have to hire a certain number of people, and they're going to have to give the business a certain amount of time. Any franchise that's, any business, doesn't matter if it's franchised or not, for that business to be successful, especially in the infancy, that business is going to have a pilot. It's going to have someone that is pushing that business forward. And depending on the level and quality and number of people that you hire, will determine how many hours you put into that business on a given day or a given week or month. And that will change over time as well as the business, goes through and progresses from its infancy to, becoming a toddler to becoming an adolescent, right? It'll require different amounts of time. And so what we like to say is really flexible ownership options.
Gotcha. No, and anybody maybe hearing the word semi-absentee for the first time, 2 things. Number 1, listen to some more of these damn episodes, because we talk about it all the time, right? But keep your job and have this, but the flexible ownership options, I always tell people, if you can't envision 10 to 15 hours a week, at least on top of what you're doing, we probably need to not look at this. Isn't just kick your feet up on your desk at your office at the job and wait for Scott and Caleb to make you tons of money. That That's not happening. If that is, guys, please correct me, and I will be franchisee number one. So let me know, right? But it is a great option to have in transition with that. But all the things that you're talking about, I think this is key to really understand as we differentiate options, especially within home service. You guys have a fantastic infrastructure built up in the franchisor, right? And you have that there for growth to help your franchisees succeed. Novel concept, we want franchisees to succeed, right? So that's amazing. But the infrastructure you're putting in, having your new franchise partners, Caleb, I got it right that time, your franchise partners implement right off the bat is one of growth. It's not just you in a pickup truck and good luck, right? It's you at least plus one plus our contractors. And really, if we're thinking like, hey, we want multiple territories right away or down the road, we need to build that infrastructure, even if it's a little more at the beginning, to ensure that growth, which again, like for people listening that don't know anything, I'm blown away by that, because that does show, again, your like the fact that you actually, I don't know how to better say this, you actually give a damn about the people who are going to come on as franchisees. And number two is you're putting them in position to be successful and have growth opportunities, which again, kind of the whole point of a new franchise is that people can come in and not come to Phoenix, Arizona and have one territory. It's how do I have Scottsdale, Gilbert, Chandler, Mesa, right? Right. This big, huge chunk. I don't have just Lincoln, Nebraska. I have Nebraska, right? Those type of things. You can't do that as a one-person show. You guys are setting the stage for that, which is just really fantastic. So I love it. So, what else? I appreciate all of your time and the info. So I'm gonna throw kind of one more question at both of you. So, and I know there's a million things you could probably answer this with, but what else would you really want to make sure that we know about Wallaby Windows that maybe we haven't already talked about?
I'll let Scott go, and then I'll go after Scott. I won't steal his thunder.
Wallaby was really built. It's coming from the franchise industry already. Wallaby was really built with the franchisee in mind. So we really said, what do we want a franchise partner to experience on their first day and on a daily basis as a business owner? And then we really backed into that. And so that's where a lot of the support that we're talking about on this podcast is really coming from, is we've kind of built a franchisee centric model, really taking into account the flexible ownership options, right? We know that there's a growing trend out there where folks are wanting to stay in a position and then have a business. And maybe it's an idea of a transitionary period, right? Where they start as employee, start a franchise, and then maybe 6 months, 12 months, a year, 2 years in, or whenever they hit that level of comfort, they can transition into their own business on a full-time basis. And so what we really did was we built it with that in mind. And that's probably the biggest thing that I would really want people to know about Wallaby.
Awesome.
And I think for me, Scott talks about kind of his high level vision, which I always appreciate. And obviously for me, some of the other details that we forgot to discuss was, this concept has good, better, best options. So, one of the things when we talk about windows, they're the really high quality ones, right? The custom homes, the $2, $3, $4, $5 million homes. But what's great is we've positioned ourselves in the good, better, best. So whether we're maybe dealing with somebody that's kind of budget conscious that does want to upgrade their home and efficiency, we have that option. Or if you've got somebody that's brand new custom home, wants this beautiful looking thing, we've got that option as well. So I think that's really unique, that we can access different types of consumers. And then the software that does all the estimating, the scheduling, all of that stuff is really cool. It's linked to our manufacturers. It's really savvy, and we've got great training as well. So a lot of things are lined up for success. We're just looking for bulldozers now. We want somebody to come in and really push push the limit for Wallaby, because this thing's going to explode. And I'll just say this, if you don't get on it now, you're going to have a missed opportunity.
Yeah, maybe, or the opportunity is you're going to be a customer because somebody's going to own it in your neighborhood.
Correct.
Right?
100%. We will be there. We will be there soon enough.
Nice. No, and I love that good, better, best thing, right? And if you go to the website, the wallabywindows.com, like basically what you're going to see is you're going to see all of Caleb's homes. They keep scrolling through there because he's a baller, right? I probably don't see a good window in those pictures, right? But again, having that option, which is also a great sales tool of like, hey, like here's this one, but that's a little bit much. We can come here. Or that's not nice enough. We like, again, from a sales perspective, that's great, because then really you're going to be confident knowing when you're sitting there talking to that prospective customer, whatever the heck they need, you've got for them, right? So
correct. Yep.
Super cool. Guys, this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on and educating all of us, myself included, on Wallaby Windows. And so really, I can't thank you guys enough for doing so.
Appreciate you having us on, Tim. And again, it's always good and fun to be first.
There you go. Scott, even though it won't be first, can we maybe get some time for you here in the month or two to talk about, could I twist your arm to come back and talk about Koala?
Absolutely.
Okay. I thought maybe
you don't even have to twist for that. He'll just come and do it.
Perfect. And if you want to bring Caleb, that's fine. Really,
they only gave me the one background.
Background.
No, I'm joking.
That's what I was going for. Do we have a different background? Do we have a different polo? So that's what I really want to see. So guys, thank you so much for coming on today to chat with us. And as always, for all of our loyal podcast listeners, we hope the Franchising 101 series continues to provide insight into the amazing possibilities that can be achieved as a franchise owner. Be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you listen to the podcast. If you are inspired finally to learn a little bit more, reach out to us. FranCoach.net, Franchising101podcast.net. There's never any fee for our service. So whether it's Wallaby or one of the other 600 plus franchises that we work with, let's see if we can find your best fit. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast, where our ultimate goal is to help educate you on all things franchising, so you can create your better tomorrow.